Welcome to the Progrum Podcast with your host Micah, aka the Program Guy, bringing you all things surrounding the Oregon Ducks football program and keeping you up to date nationally in college football. Go Ducks! How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Progrum Podcast. I'm your host, Micah, aka the Program Guy. Excited to have you guys back in for another episode. Post-game Colorado. So that was a fun game. A lot leading up to this game, a lot to dissect. Definitely what we thought would be a pretty big matchup with Colorado and Oregon both rolling in undefeated. Colorado had moved themselves into the conversation, at least in the top 25, and Oregon already being, sitting at number 10. It was, went from a matchup that you thought was just about Deion Sanders, kind of to start the year, into a matchup that turned into something way more than that as the weeks trickled on in the first part of the season. Deion took over Colorado, and you thought, wow, okay, Colorado's coming out. Deion Sanders will be in town. That'll be a fun environment just because it's Deion, and you didn't really think too much of it beyond that, honestly, especially from a game standpoint and a matchup standpoint. Then Colorado wins their first few games. Oregon obviously handles business their first few games, and you end up with a 3-0 and 3-0 matchup where Oregon's ranked 10th and Colorado gets their ranking up to number 19. And you finally, turn this matchup away from just Deion into an actual football game where people are curious, is Colorado good? Is Colorado great? Is Colorado subpar? And I think, Oregon kind of answered a lot of those questions for a lot of folks. They from the jump, Oregon made this personal, like, Deion likes to talk about everything's personal. He waits for a moment during the week leading up to a game usually to find a way to get his team hyped up. And Dan kind of took a page out of his book and got them pretty hyped up for the game against Colorado. And, the locker room, they had a video that came out where the cameras were in there and they were, watching the pregame a little bit. And Dan made a few comments about, you're built on substance, not flash, and this game's not played in Hollywood, it's played on the grass. And those things are all true. I think Oregon felt a little bit disrespected just in general by the media, by Colorado. Colorado shows up, players are talking about the size of the stadium, kind of discussing, how they're not scared and it's whatever. And, even beyond that, you had a player who decided he would go and kind of drag his feet across the O, which is, players do whatever. Kids are kids. But it's something you can use as bulletin board material, right? So Oregon, gets a massive win post all this drama, gets on the field and just dominates 42-6. And this game really wasn't even that close, as crazy as that sounds, because Oregon dominated this football game in every statistical category up through the middle part of the third quarter that you could probably ever hope for. It was as big of a beatdown as you will probably ever see with your good on good, meaning your ones on ones on both sides of the ball. Oregon dominated this game. At one point they're up 42-0. Colorado, less than 8 minutes or so to go in the third quarter, has about 47 yards of total offense. So, and this is a Colorado team that offensively, at the very least, was very, very good. They weren't a great football team. They weren't perfect. No Travis Hunter. He, like we had discussed in the last episode, was a little dinged up. Had some issues from that late hit he took. He'll probably be out for a couple weeks, so hopefully he can have a speedy recovery. So, that hurt him a little bit. But, one guy can't really make everything happen for you. So you have to somehow find a way to replace him and at least get some offense going. Oregon just would not let up. They, again, from the jump, their game plan was fantastic. They had a fourth down there, early on in the game where Oregon actually did get stopped on one drive. Dan decides to pull out the fake punt, and next thing you got big Casey Rogers running down the left side of the football field, gets a first down, just keeps the momentum rolling, and Oregon just continues to absolutely thump them from that point on. Oregon really never took their foot off the gas until that third quarter. Like I said, they just absolutely dominated this football game. And I think it kind of put things in perspective about where Oregon's trying to go. The meat of their schedule is ahead of them. The gauntlet that is the Pac-12 as these games trickle on in the coming weeks as we get into the middle part of the season, into the back half of the season. You're going to know a lot more about, Oregon and other teams in the conference, but this was a resounding win. And, obviously it helps to shut up a lot of the talking and stuff that goes on with, Deion and all that stuff. That's just kind of what you get with Deion Sanders. Credit to him because he's built a brand out there out of Colorado, which wasn't a brand. They haven't been relevant in such a long time. Their brand has meant nothing to college football really since the early 2000s and prior, in the 90s and stuff when they were very successful. But they haven't been relevant in such a long time. So it is neat to see, them back on the map and to have someone like Deion running their program and, having a great quarterback and, being able to, have some good kids on that team. Obviously, like I said, not having Travis hurt them a lot. He's a two-way player. He's probably a day one kid for the NFL here soon when he goes into the draft. And obviously, Shadir Sanders, Deion's son, is an excellent quarterback. He struggled immensely. Ended up with 159 yards passing on 33 throws. And the craziest part about that is the majority of that came in the fourth quarter when they were still leaving their ones in trying to get some points, where they got that late touchdown to even give them 6 points. Up until that late part of the game, even against Oregon's 2s and 3s, nothing was happening. They really struggled everywhere on the football field. And then even defensively for them, obviously, Oregon just dominated, on offense as well. The game plan was really good. Will Stein's been really good at play calling and really getting, things in order and trying to build some foundational principles with this offense. I do think there's some room for some more shots downfield and stuff like that, but that stuff comes in time. And again, I'm not the offensive coordinator, I'm just a fan like a lot of us are. And so I'm not here to, question his play calling necessarily. But I do think we have the playmakers and the quarterback and Bo Nix that can make those big plays consistently if they're called to do it. So I'd like to see, a little more of that. Bo's missed a few this year so far, that were just a hair off that would have been touchdowns. So there has been some of that mixed into the game plan. They've just been missed. So probably would have a little different conversation if we would have made those plays, obviously, because it would look a lot different, But Bo had himself a day. Once again, he was 28 for 33 for 276 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had one little blemish with a pick that was really just a short arm throw. He had his wide receiver down the sideline wide open and just short-armed it. It wasn't necessarily a coverage pick or anything like that. He just made a bad throw, got picked. So that was the one blemish on his day, but he continues to just be super efficient, really, really good at taking care of the football, doesn't put it in positions where you really have to worry about what's going to happen with the football, which is really what you expect and hope for with your quarterback. So really, really big day for Bo. Troy had another huge day at receiver. He's been on a tear this year, and I don't really see this slowing down. If anything, I think it's going to keep building up. He is turning himself into arguably a day one wide receiver with his growth. It's just, the consistency we're seeing out of Troy, the difference in the back half of last year coming into this season, and what you're already seeing the first, handful of games this year is Troy is ready to play. And he always has been, but he has hit a different gear now. He's being challenged, you can tell, by the staff and just tapping into something extra now. He ended up with 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, just really, really good numbers. It's not always about numbers because outside of that, he does an excellent job blocking and he demands so much attention defensively. It opens other things up. So, having a guy like him is very, very important. Another great day for Bucky. Bucky had about 90 yards on about 10 carries. The Oregon running game has always been strong. This year is no exception to that. I love the balancedness of their offense. They complement each other so well. It opens things up for your pass and your run, and they just feed off each other all game long. Oregon ended up with 522 yards of offense and really played about 2.5, maybe 3 quarters of real football because they pulled their starters and they still end up with over 500 yards. So you really, really can't, complain about their offensive stats whatsoever, because Oregon dominated this football game to the point where they just took their foot off the gas, like a lot of good teams do. We'll kind of break down a little bit of the stats a little bit just to kind of show where Oregon was from a yard standpoint overall. So, like I said, 282 yards total passing. That included a little bit of passing from Ty Thompson and Bo combined. And then you had 240 yards rushing overall between your several backs that you have. Obviously Jordan James has done so good this year and been a really big bright spot beyond Noah. Noah's always been the 1-2 with Bucky, and so now you got this three-headed monster. And that's not to say that the guys behind them, Dante Dowdell and Lamar, aren't good. They're great too, right? They're just young, and so there's a huge amount of depth there. Oregon did take a little bit of a blow. It looked like Noah got pretty dinged up on one of his runs. Looks like he got rolled up on. Looks like a knee or an ankle, something in the leg. Probably will be out for a little bit of time. It doesn't look like something where he's going to be back pretty quick. Obviously, we'll know here in the coming days and weeks and stuff if that's a long-term issue, season-ending, few weeks, what it may be. But it did look fairly serious. So, prayers up to him for a speedy recovery, and we really hope that he can get back on the field quickly, because he is an absolute animal running the football. So, Oregon, just like I said, Oregon really, really dominated this football game. It was really an exciting atmosphere. That was as good as Autzen has been in a really long time, from just a fan perspective, right? And it wasn't just a Deion thing. It was just all the hype, all the buildup, all the what you felt like was, everyone thinking Oregon wasn't any good because it was all Colorado talk. Fans brought it, vintage Autzen, vintage noise. Over the last decade or so, we haven't had a lot of those games because, especially back in the chip era, we would get up by so much, it would just get quiet, right? And so to have a game like this where it felt like the whole game, Oregon was trying to make a point about what they were doing, from a dominating standpoint, that the fans were into it. The fans wanted to see the Buffs get absolutely rolled up on, and they got a show for sure. So, this game could have easily been 60, 70 to nothing, honestly, if you play your starters for another half a quarter or longer. But they didn't have to. So that's always a good thing when you get to a point where you're actually up 42-0 at one point. You know that you got the game well in hand. So they weren't worried about, having them come back or anything like that, obviously. So Oregon did a really good job. Bo Nix, like I said, his Heisman campaign is kicked off. The Bodacious ad campaign and all that stuff is kicked off, and got the Bodacious shirt while I was there. Had some really cool stuff too. Was able to actually get Uncle Phil to sign my Uncle Phil hat, which was pretty neat. Always cool to see the support that we get from Phil, and it's a true blessing to have him in the football program and just a part of the university. And he's such a cool guy. 9 times out of 10, if you bump into him or something, he's always willing to say hi, take a pic, sign something, which is really neat. It's really cool how down to earth somebody like that's that important and influential in the world, is so down to earth. Got a chance to meet up and have a little conversation with Tinker Hatfield. Had a chance to talk to him a few times as well. It was really cool to chat with him before the game. And there's just so many people there. Terrell Owens was on the sidelines for Deion, and they had a few people over there, obviously, that, follow that circus around that is the Colorado Buffaloes. And again, that's not a comment in disrespect. It's a crazy thing to watch, how much attention they've garnered. And really, again, that's the Deion effect. So you have to just respect that and understand that with that comes viewers and celebrities and, all kinds of people that just want to, follow Deion around and follow his journey and see what he can do with Colorado, which is really neat. I do think that he's probably a couple cycles away from, being really good. I think they got some good playmakers on both sides of the football. I think they have a huge depth issue, obviously, and they're still not great yet. I feel like they're good. I feel like Oregon's just built up to be a way stronger program at this point in time. Doesn't mean Colorado won't be good down the road as they transition out of the conference, and make their way back into the Big 12 and get established over there. I think they're going to do big things in that conference. I think they have a chance to really win a lot of football games over there. I really do, especially if he can go back through the portal, get some more people, and, recruit decent. I'm not sure how long Deion's going to be around. I think it's, some people think he'll stick around long enough to make him good before he takes off. I think if the right opportunity presents itself in the South or something, I could see him easily going back over there. So nothing's really set in stone, in my opinion, with Deion. I don't know that he's going to be at Colorado long enough to watch them be great. It would be really neat if he was. I could also see him maybe going to the NFL, honestly. I think that someone would give him a shot, as crazy as that sounds. There's some discrepancies kind of, would his situation work with how he kind of teaches and leads and stuff like that. It's more for young men than it is for grown men. And that's a valid argument. I think that he definitely, has some tendencies where he likes to push against the grain a little bit harder than some other people, make some comments and some statements that maybe, would ruffle some grown men's feathers a little bit. But everybody leads a different way, and I think that's just his way of doing it. So, again, credit to Colorado, credit to what they're trying to do and their program for going out and swinging for the fence and hiring Deion and pumping some life back into that, that university and back into, the Colorado football program. So, obviously a dominating win in Eugene for this week. But that doesn't mean that, obviously, that down the road Colorado won't be good, or that, Oregon's going to be way better than Colorado in the future. No one knows what the future holds. Oregon is recruiting very well right now and looks like they're going to obviously, be in a good position, going forward. Recruiting's been incredible under Dan Lanning, hasn't really missed a beat. If anything, it's gotten better. Dan's really starting to recruit the type of folks, just like every other coach, that he wants to put into his system on both sides of the ball, and with him and Stein and him and Tosh, and it's really starting to take shape. You can kind of see where he's headed with this program, and it's really fun to watch. So, it'll be weird to turn the page next week to Stanford because it's always a great time to go to the farm, be down there with the wife. We're going to take the trip down to San Francisco, and we always love going down to the Bay Area and going to the Bay Area games. And so it'll be fun to make one last trip to the farm. It'll be a little emotional to not really go back there again, at least for the short-term future. It may only be a handful of years, and we may have super conferences and end up back in a region with them. Who knows? But as it stands right now, there's just not, this is it for Stanford, right? So it'll be nice to go down there and get one last game in. Stanford's really struggling. They've lost to UC Davis. So it's one of those things where, this is not the typical down on the farm, kind of game where you should really be concerned. Having said that, it's not that they are, how do I put it? It's not that they are a terrible football team, right? I just think they're in a rebuild. I think anytime you can lose to Sac State, that you're not where you want to be, as a program. It's hard coming off the Shaw years, previously the Harbaugh years. There was so much continuity in that staff and just in that program in general that there was always a concern, even on a down year, they still had good players on that roster. You had to be a little bit careful because you would slip up and you would lose, which Oregon has done many times against Stanford. It's kind of been a thorn in our side, and been our Achilles heel, so to speak. So I don't feel like this is going to be one of those games next week. Going into Stanford, I feel like Stanford's going to be, probably somewhere in the same realm of what this score was against Colorado. I could see Stanford putting up a couple scores, scoring 14 or 17 points because they typically play pretty well at home. And then I see Oregon playing, 45, 50 points up the board, something along those lines. So, to me, I won't really have any concerns with this. It's a little weird to even say that. I don't want to, jinx but on the game or anything like that. But I don't think this is going to be an issue game-wise for Oregon at all. I think Oregon's going to handle Stanford, pretty much dominate them from the jump. Now, I will say this. Coming off an emotional game after Colorado, even though you're not playing a huge opponent, just all the stuff surrounding that Colorado game this week really makes me think that, it could be one of those things where Oregon's a little bit slow out of the gate. Hopefully not too slow. Hopefully they start quick, right? That's the hope. But usually the way things work in college football is after a game like this, you are a little emotional, a little bit in the mud to start off, and then you kind of get things rolling. So I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. I don't think, Stanford's going to take control of the game or anything like that, but it could be a little close at first. Like I said, on the farm is a little strange no matter who, what kind of team they got. So be fun to get out on the farm. I think Oregon's got a really good chance to go through their schedule and win basically almost every game, right? You don't want to say that they're going to win every game in this conference because there's a lot of good football teams. You got USC waiting for you, you got Utah waiting for you, you got Washington waiting for you. The ever so difficult Cougs are going to come into town, and they always play us tough. So there's a lot of opportunities there where you could easily slip up and lose a game, or just be in a battle and the ball bounced the wrong way and you could lose the game. So I don't necessarily think Oregon's going to go undefeated, but I do think Oregon's in for a very special year in year 2 under Dan Lanning. I think Oregon's taken a big jump in my eyes, regardless of who they played. It looks like they're already starting to take on the characteristics of what he wants a team to be. So fun start to the season. Obviously to start off the year with that crazy game at Tech, and being able to come back and take control of that game at the very end and get that win in a hostile environment. That just builds character in the team. It's going to help Oregon down the road. Tech is not the best team in the world, but that's a hard place to play. They're a pretty decent football team, and it just shows kind of your mettle to be able to come back and win that game and come in to play Colorado the way that they did this week. I think that's going to carry over right into Stanford. Like I said, if it's a little shaky at first, don't be alarmed. It's kind of what you expect, again, after an emotional game like this. It was such a fun time to just watch them dominate. Oregon feels a lot like those Chip Kelly years to me. I've told that to a lot of friends. I've mentioned that to a lot of people. This just feels different than it did with Mario. We had a lot of close games with Cristobal where it almost felt like we were underperforming with the teams that we had. The teams that had Panay and Justin Herbert, CJ Verdell, we so much talent on those teams. And then you look around and you go, man, we were in so many close games, barely won games, got a Rose Bowl, got Pac-12 titles out of it, but it always felt like we were on the cusp of losing so many games. And since Chip, it hasn't really felt like we've been blowing people out or even been good enough to do so. And you kind of get the feeling that Dan is building Oregon back up to that point and beyond. The way that he's doing it on both sides of the football. Defensively, I think Oregon's headed in such a different direction than we've ever seen. To watch the development of these kids, the development of the kids that are already here, as well as the ones that are getting ready to come in the next couple of seasons, because there's a lot of big names on the board that Oregon's bringing in, and a few that Oregon's still waiting on that I think they're going to get last second that's going to shock some people as well. So yeah, it's going to be a really fun year as things trickle in with recruiting, and excited to get out to Palo Alto. Really fun place. I'll make sure to take some video and stuff out there and share that with you guys as well. And I got a few things I'm going to post with this video as well at the end of this video, some pictures and some videos and stuff like that. But yeah, one thing I will say outside of the football aspect, we had a little crazy situation happen with the Duck mascot where he came out and had his time is up clock around his neck and dressed up kind of like Dion, his cowboy hat, his sunglasses, started beating down on a box in the middle of the football field, and his head fell off. Which was kind of a weird deal, which I got on video, and that was shown kind of on ESPN and everything, which was pretty funny. So yeah, there's some cool videos and stuff that I'm going to post at the end of this video, but always good chatting with you guys. Appreciate your support. You can find me on Instagram at GoDucks1987. That's GODUX 1987. And you can find me on YouTube at the Progrum Podcast. I will be on podcast platforms here very quick. I'm just getting everything dialed in with the last bit of stuff for that, and I'll be excited to be on there as well, so that'll be fun to be on all the podcast platforms, kind of expand this show a little bit and keep tinkering a little by little to make it as good as I possibly can for you guys. This is all new to me, so I'm just grateful to get the show off the ground and have some shows in line and some stuff that I've coming down the road with some interviews and different things that I'm excited for as well. So really looking forward to that. Appreciate you guys as always, and looking forward to Stanford. Hopefully we'll be able to chop that tree one last time down on the farm, and going to be a really fun time. So hope you guys have a great week, and as always, go Ducks.